Olivia. Thank you for your time. It's a really honor to talk to you. And let's start from the very beginning. How was the writing process of this book?
I haven't read the book, you know. My son Alex wrote the book. He wrote it really and did all the research from my notes and my memories. He would ask me questions because he was in Mexico, I was in LA, and he would ask me questions and things, and I remember things and stories and different things, and then he'd, you know, cut it all down, because it would have been a 500-page book if not. You know, we had to get a certain amount of. So Alex did a fantastic job, I thought, making it. I didn't want it to be too stilted and I wanted it to be so that a young 14, 15-year-old in English class could be learning Romeo and Juliet. They see our film and they still can relate. And they can, so many people write to me and text me now and just say, you know, because of you, I loved Shakespeare. And then I loved the arts. I learned to read because of your Romeo and Juliet. It changed my life. And I get that even today from young teenagers and things. It's quite amazing. I get fan mail and fan Twitter, Facebook, you know, Instagram. I'm on all of them now, finally. And I still get messages from 15, 14-year-olds and 70-year-olds and 50-year-old people that have said, you changed my life, and thank you, I'll never forget it. And so it's really an honor, and it's a privilege to have been part of something that was just such a great moment in time, such a great experience, you know, the greatest experience for Leonard, for myself, I think for everyone involved, because it was just a classic little film. We knew 3 weeks into rehearsal that this film was going to be something special, because the response from the entire world, from journalists, while we were shooting the film, Leonard and I would break for lunch and they'd have 2 or 3 journalists that would have lunch with us. You know, it was unbelievable, the response to this film. It was like, I can only liken it today to what Titanic did in a different form. It was that kind of, the world just, you know, to this day, even though I'm older, when I meet somebody that has been affected by our production of Romeo and Juliet, I know it. I can see it in their eyes instantly, you know. And so I find interviews difficult, but I absolutely love meeting fans. So every once in a while, Leonard and I get together and we do, not with COVID right now, but after COVID, we're hoping to do a tour and to travel and to, you know, let's get all these countries inviting us to go so we can go meet the young people and talk about our experiences, because Leonard and I both are very good one-on-one with people. You know, it's the interviews, we've done so many thousands, you think be used to it by now, but when Leonard and I are very close. We've remained close all these years.
Which are your memories of Buenos Aires?
I was 6 or 7 when I left, so I don't remember very much. I mean, I remember the sense of family. I remember I had my Argentinian family and I had my English family. And so we were bilingual at that time, because my Argentinian side didn't speak any English at all. And the English side spoke Argentinian, but it was, you know, I remembered because my parents separated. They were Catholics, so they didn't divorce, but they were separated, and my father would come visit my brother and I. We would stay a lot of times at my grandmother's house. And I remember my visits with my father. I remember my aunties, my uncles. I remember all of my Argentinian side, all my uncles played guitar and loved guitar and sang tangos. And I remember that, you know, as a little girl. And my English side, my grandmother was very strict about the English language, and because she taught English in Buenos Aires. She taught people how to speak English. So I remember just really little moments like that. You know, my family on the Argentinian side doing a lot of music, and, you know, and the English side being just my mother, really. My mother, my mother's sister, my cousins, Max, Debbie, and Jerry, they still live there and they have their children now. And we're always in touch, you know, thank God for WhatsApp, you know, so yeah. It was
And
very traumatic. I had to leave there. You know, my mother wanted us to go to England to visit for a while, and she had to have my father's permission at the time. And she said, I'll only be gone for a year, but it's good for the children to know their English side. And we had some relatives in England. And it was very, very traumatic for me leaving.
yes,
My brother, not so much, but I was very attached to my father. I was very close to him, like daughters and fathers, you know. I went to Argentina when I think it was 16. I went really because I hadn't seen my father since I was 6, since we left to go to England, my mother, my brother, and I. So yes, but I went back. I was invited by the government actually when Romeo and Juliet was very big, and they they brought my grandmother out on this big live show to introduce us. It was a very emotional trip for me.
yeah.
You know, and my mother had never really told me what my father's stage name was. And after I did a lot of interviews and things, I got onto an elevator in the hotel there in Buenos Aires, and some gentleman got on the elevator with me, and he said, "You look like one of our singers." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yes, his name's Osvaldo Ribot. He's a tango singer." And I said, "Oh, well, that's very nice." He said, "Yes, you look very much like him. Has someone told you that before?" And I said, "No." So I went up to the hotel room. I called my mother at the time, who was in England. And I said, "Mummy, who's Osvaldo Ribot?" And she said, "That's your father. That was his stage name." Because my father sang tango. He was a very respected tango singer there in South America. So it was a strange trip. It was very emotional for me, seeing my dad for the first time, and you know,
Well,
my cousins, my aunties, and I have a lot of family in Buenos Aires. So.
and was it very difficult to leave Argentina to travel to London with your mom and your little brother?
It was very, very difficult. It was completely different because in Argentina, everybody is very loving and full of life and passionate and tempers, and you know how it is. It's like very Argentinian, Italian, Spanish. It's that Latin blood, you know, which is wonderful, which helped me be the actress I was, you know. But when we got to England, England was completely different. I remember the ship landed and we were very small, and it was a foggy evening when we landed, and we thought we were in a strange planet. We didn't know, you know, and it took a long time to get used to the English, the way people are, because the English are lovely. They're not passionate. They keep everything inside, and it takes a long time to form bonds, relationships in England. Whereas in Argentina, everyone's welcome, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? You know, it's a whole different mentality. So we were very, very young, and my mother, who was an amazing lady who just wanted us to see a bit of the world, and you know, she worked for the Argentinian embassy in London because she was an amazing type. She could type a lot of words a minute. So she was a legal secretary, a typist for the legal department. And so she never lost ties with Argentina. And, you know, it was difficult. It was very difficult to go and uproot us and take us away from everything we knew. All our family, my grandmother, you know, my auntie, my uncles, everybody was in Argentina, really. We just knew maybe 2 people in England. So it was very brave of my mother to do that. But it was difficult for a few years, from what I remember.
Yeah. You wanted to be an actress from a very young age, right?
No, I wanted to be an actress from the age of 4. I used to walk around in Buenos Aires with a towel on my head, pretending to be a nun, you know. And that's all I ever wanted to do, was pretend to be other people and act. You know, so when I went to London, I asked my mother, I wanted to join an acting school. But way back then, it was 1965 or 64, you know, it wasn't really that easy, and a lot of the schools were private, you know, and we couldn't really afford, on my mother's wage, we couldn't really afford to have me go to a private school, because the public schools in England are pretty good, you know. And I remember my mother found the top acting schools, and I said, what about that one? And it was the Italia Conti Stage School. And I said, I like the name of it. Italia Conti sounds Italian. And I was a little girl. I mean, I was 7.5, 8 years old, and I wanted to go to acting school. That was my dream. So Mummy arranged like a meeting, and I met Miss Italia Conti herself, Miss Conti. And I walked in, and I think I was 8, almost 9 years old. And I had this meeting with her because I had to explain to her why I wanted to go to this school, and why most of the children that went were came from privileged homes, and they could afford the fees, the very large fees. And I just looked at her and I said, you know, one day I'm going to be on your writing paper. And I know that, you know, if you give me this chance, Miss Conti, I will work so hard. My mother can pay a little bit, but I will be working, and I will work, because this is the only thing I can ever do. That's all. And she just looked at me and she just said, I like your spunk, Olivia. And she said, yes, I think I'm going to give this a try. And so she let me come to the school, and my mother paid very little fees. And then by the time I was 10, I was already doing a few walk-on parts and things. And I started making little bits of money and helping with the fees. And that was how it started. So, and the drama school was wonderful because we learned song and movement, ballet, acting. But I was a little girl, you know, it was really, yeah, it was wonderful.
Yeah, as a little girl, you seem to be very independent.
I had to be, really. When you think you're taken away from it, you know, my brother was very shy and very quiet, but I was like very protective of him. And I lost that after Romeo and Juliet, especially when we became so famous, and I got shyer and quieter, and you get very self-conscious when really the world is watching you grow up. It was an exceptional film, and it was an exceptional experience for Leonard and I both. You know, we started out as just complete unknown teenagers, you know, with this love of performing. And by the end of the whole experience, we were really, in this day and age, you'd say they were like superstars. Because there was nowhere in the world that we couldn't go, that people didn't say, it's Romeo and Juliet. You know, it was incredible experience. And working with those great English actors, and it was wonderful.
But how did you get to the casting of Romeo and Juliet?
It was, well, at the time, I had got this amazing job as one of the 4 main schoolgirls in the prime of Miss Jean Brodie with Vanessa Redgrave. And it was a smash hit in England. They did a film of it afterwards, but Vanessa didn't do it. But Vanessa did the stage play. I was just 12 years old, and I'd done a couple of films, and I'd already done a little bit of theater work, just walk-on parts and one-lines. That's how you start there when you first start. And then I was there in school, and these girls were told we're always being sent out on big auditions and things. And I was very tiny and very quiet and very shy, unless I had an audition. Then I was like, you know, and I heard these 2 girls in drama school saying, do you know, this Italian director's here to direct this love story. And it's going to be the first color special for the BBC in England. And I was listening to them, and I was 13. And when I heard them say, it's this Italian director called Franco Zeffirelli, and he's doing Romeo and Juliet. And in that moment, I just heard it, and I got this feeling of, that's what I have to do. That's what I'm going to do. And I had this feeling like I already had this part. It was really weird. And then I forgot about it, and I was working with Vanessa Redgrave at Wyndham's Theatre in Leicester Square in London, which is one of the big theatres. And we were doing the prime of Miss Jean Brodie, and I played one of the schoolgirls. And so we had to wait our turn, and the auditions came up to go, and they'd send 10 girls from one school, 8 girls from another. I mean, there were 800 girls in London alone that he saw. And so that was, I had this first meeting with him at 65, 66 Green Street. And it was funny because we had to be tested, and all the girls shared one dress. So we had this one white dress that they'd put on us. And then they introduced us to the boys that had this one jacket. And right from the very beginning, when I saw Franco, I just loved him instantly. He was so alive and puffing on his cigarettes, and he was amazing, you know, like an Italian passionate genius. That's what he was. And I thought, oh my God, I have to work with him. I have to get this. And I really hadn't done Shakespeare before. I mean, I did it in drama school, but I got cast once as Romeo, you know, in the school play. And because my voice was a little bit low, because at that time I smoked a lot of cigarettes, you know, which was very bad, but everyone did it. I was a rebel. Yeah. So, and then when I met Franco, then he said, this is the boy I've selected for you, because he put different partners with different things. And Leonard and I were introduced. He said, this is Leonard Whiting, and this is Olivia Hussey, and I want you to audition as Romeo and Juliet, just the two of you. And then he had other people with the other actors. But that's how we first met. And I really didn't get to audition with any other actor, and Leonard didn't with any other, you know, we were just paired off immediately. So it was, and then it was wangled down, you know, we did, oh my goodness, because I had to go to the theatre in Wyndham's, and we did a performance every night, and then we did matinees 2 days a week. And so in between that time, Franco would come into town and say, okay, now we're going to do the balcony scene. And I'd say, okay, and that was the most difficult scene for me because it was long, and she had so many different emotions and things. And Shakespeare was new to me, and I had still a little bit of an Argentinian accent. And Leonard was very Cockney. That was from the East End of London, north of London, Cockney. So we worked very, very hard, and we'd go back, and Frank would come into town, audition a group of teenagers, two at a time, you know, Romeo and Juliet. And then he'd say, I'm coming back in 2 weeks. I'm going back to Rome, coming back in 2 weeks. And I want to try this other scene now. You know, so they were continuous auditions. They weren't just, you know, and they sort of got it from 800, it went down to less and less and less. And for some reason it was, and then, you know, I was having a very hard time with the balcony scene, and Franco would sit behind the camera and he'd get pieces of paper and roll them up, and he'd flick them at me as I was trying to do this. Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou? And he'd be flicking, and I turned around and said, I said, will you stop that? I'm trying to act here. And he just said, I like that. You just keep that spirit. That's what I want. You know, and that's how it started, because it wasn't this Shakespearean, he wanted us to be young and alive. He said, you know, I want to make this production. It's been made before, but never with young people that are around the age that Shakespeare wrote Romeo and Juliet to be. And he said, so it's very important to me. I want to make this classic film that in 50 years from now, young people will still look at it and remember it and feel the same, because emotions and feelings are always the same. We get older, but there's a part of us that always have that inner child. We never forget, do we? You know, we just go back. And then I said, this balcony scene is all that and I said, unless I'm there. And Franco said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, the potion scene, because if you read all of the play, you know, the potion scene for Juliet is a fantastic scene. It's a whole long monologue, and it's Juliet just talking to Tybalt, and it's just this whole dramatic thing. And being 15, I was like, into drama, you know, I wanted drama. And he said, so that's what you want to do instead of the balcony scene? I said, that would be easy for me. And then I could act by myself. And it's hard for me to act with other people. I just, you know, and so he said, okay, I'm going back to Rome. I'll be back in 3 weeks. And then you will do this potion scene for me. And let's see if you can act. That's how he spoke, you know. I said, I'm going to show him, you know. So I went, and I was going to the theater every night to do Wyndham's, and with all the school girls and everybody. And it took me, to learn the potion scene, it took me 1 hour, because it was so amazingly written. It's Shakespeare, you know. The beautiful thing is, you know, when you do something, the producers and people can't change the dialogue. All they can do is delete something if they don't like it, but they can't rewrite it, and they can't give you written pages and say, we're going to change it, you know, which often happens in other roles. But Shakespeare, thank God, it's so well written that there's no need. And so that happened, and Franco came back. And by the time he came back, there were 3 Paramount men in suits at the audition at Dean Street. 3 men standing there in suits, and Michael York, who had done The Taming of the Shrew with Franco, Michael had popped in just to say hello and to watch the auditions. And so it was just myself for that one. And Franco said, okay, I'm going to tell you, and they were standing in the back, and he said, I'm going to tell you what I want you to do. And I said, no, can you just tell me where you want me to stand for the camera? And let me just do what I feel, because I've been practicing. I've been doing this for you, you know. And so he said, oh, okay, she's very confident this time. And I said, I feel like it feels, you know. And so I did this. And by the time I'd finished, I put my head back dramatically and fell on the floor crying. And you know, because during the balcony scene, I was like, oh, it was difficult, but this one just came out of me. And I fell behind this thing that they had put me up against. And I could hear, you could hear a pin drop. It was complete silence. And there was quiet. And I was on the floor. And once I started crying, I couldn't stop. And then Franco came around to the edge, and he picked me up off the floor. And he said, and he kissed me. And he said, you're going to love Rome. And that's when I knew I had the part, but I wasn't allowed to say anything for a while. And we had to go on for more auditions. But that's when Franco told me, it blew them away, the balconies, the potion scene, the way it was done. Franco just said, whoa, that was, you know, I didn't get to do it in the film. In the film, all she did was say, love, give me strength. And that was it, you know, and drink it. But there's a whole monologue that precedes that, Juliet's doubts and fears. And, you know, she's a little girl, a young girl that's about to take a potion that makes her appear dead. It must have been quite frightening, you know. So Franco didn't want me to shoot the balcony scene for the film, the potion scene. He didn't want me to shoot it because he didn't want people to remember the film for that potion scene. He wanted them to remember the film as Romeo and Juliet as a whole. That was the only sad thing about the film. I didn't get to do the potion scene, the scene I loved the most.
Yeah, you were so good at it that in order to keep a balance between Romeo and Juliet, they needed to cut a little bit of your part, right?
A lot of my part, actually, a lot of the different things. Reggie Mills, the editor, would come to me and say, I can't believe this, Olivia, but when you just wipe that tear away, it made everyone that's cutting here in the editing room cry. Don't let Franco take that out. Don't let him take it. And Franco would say, no, darling, it's too much. And he'd take those moments out, you know, and Reggie would get upset. And it was a lot of ups and downs. Great experience, just wonderful.
And during the shooting of Romeo and Juliet, which was the most fun moment and which the most difficult?
The most fun, I think, just getting to know Leonard, because we were both young and we had a big crush on each other. And, you know, we sort of bonded. You bond when you work with somebody, especially at that young age. You know, we had Paramount people all the time, executives around all the time. Franco had his big dinners and and Leonard and I sort of clung to each other. You know, we got through this together. I think that's why we have a lifelong friendship. You know, the most difficult part for me shooting-wise was the balcony scene. That was very difficult because Franco had built a wall. That was just a wall. And he built a balcony in front of the wall. That wasn't a real balcony. And on the other side of the wall, there was so much traffic that we could only shoot the balcony scene at night when there was very little traffic, and they closed the roads so that you couldn't hear the honking and the yelling and the, you know, it was, but he just loved the look of that wall, which was so beautiful, you know. And that was the most difficult scene for me, with all the running and all the changes and Leonard getting up the tree and down the tree. That was the most difficult scene I think we had together. The most fun scene was the bedroom scene because we were very young and, you know, we had a crush on each other, and Leonard wasn't shy at all, but I was very shy, you know, it had never been heard of it during that time in the 60s, that a 15-year-old, by the end of the film, I was almost 16, and Leonard was 17, that were completely naked for their love scene. It was unheard of at that time and banned in a lot of countries, from what I heard, that, or censored, you know, because of it. But that was the most fun scene for us. But every scene was fun because it was just, we became, with the crew, with everybody, we all became like a family. It took about 9 months to shoot, you know, and then after that, it was a lot of dubbing in the dubbing studio. We had hundreds of hours, and Franco wanted to change he wanted, and they used an Arriflex camera, which was noisy, especially during the balcony scene. So we literally had to dub the entire balcony scene in the studio after it was shot and get the same feelings, the same emotions. The dubbing, the looping, the voiceover work was more difficult than the filming, really.
And during that time, you met another great Italian film director.
Fellini. Oh, I loved him because Franco used to bully me. We were in the studio, and Fellini was working with Hiram Keller and Martin Potter, who were the stars of Satyricon. And Franco would bully me, and I'd just go off and wander off in the other studios, you know, to just see what else other people were doing. And I looked through one of the windows and I see Satyricon, and I had met Martin and Hiram in New York before. And so I went in there, and Fellini was sitting there, and he just said, Giulietta, vieni qua, and he'd sit on my lap. And so I was sitting on his lap watching him doing the dubbing and the work on Satyricon. So I was watching it through the thing, and he sat there and he was doing, you know, he was famous for doing his little doodles and things. And he had a little piece of balsa wood, and he did a drawing of me. I had a ponytail one day, and he did a drawing, and then he did all these little caricatures, and then he put alla mia cara Giulietta, tanti baci de Fellini, you know, and somebody stole it from my house one day. So I didn't get to keep that. For me, it was, and then I was sitting on his lap, and when Franco was mean, I'd go right to the other studio, because Fellini told me, anytime you want, qualche volta, vieni qua, you know, and I said, because you're nice and Franco's mean, you know, like that. And one day Franco walked in, and he said, what are you doing in here? I'm sitting there on Fellini's lap, you know, and he said, what are you doing here? Do you know who this is? I said, a very nice person, Franco. And Fellini was joking and laughing. He said, this is the great Federico Fellini. And I said, well, he's wonderful to me, and he's lovely, and you should be like this to me. And he just, shut up and get back in there. You have to do dubbing for me. And we were laughing. It was very sweet. And that's how I met. And then one night Fellini invited me to dinner. I don't think we put that in the book, but I forgot because at the time. And it was Giulietta Massina was his wife, the beautiful from La Strada. You remember the great Fellini. And she was fantastic. And he said, Giulietta, he called me Giulietta, not Olivia. And he said, Giulietta, I want you to come meet my wife, and we'll have dinner at our little apartment in Rome. And so one night I went over there, and I had dinner with Fellini and with Giulietta, the three of us. And that was just the most amazing experience you can imagine, because I had seen La Strada and I thought she was the most amazing actress. And he was always so sweet to me, like a grandpa, you know, just lovely. So I had that great time. Anyway, I forgot to put that in the book, actually, I think.
Yeah, and then you became a movie star, and you decided to move to Hollywood.
Well, I didn't just decide. I met a lot of people, and I met these managers in London who were American. And they wanted to bring me to Los Angeles. And I said, I went there on the tour and I said, it looks like a big pretend place. And I wasn't excited to come. And they said, and then one of their clients was an actor called Christopher Jones. And I had seen him in a film called Chabasco and Wild in the Streets, another one. And I got like a crush. I was 16, 17. And I had a crush on him. And a few weeks after I saw that film, one of my agents in London called me and said, there's these American managers and there's an American actor in town because he's doing David Lean's new film and he would love to meet you. And I said, I don't really want to meet anyone because I was so shy and I didn't like to go out in public because people recognized me everywhere I went. And I said, well, who's the actor? And they said, Christopher Jones. I said, really? I just saw him a couple of weeks ago in this film. So I decided to take this meeting because I liked Christopher Jones and I wanted to meet him. And those are the managers that brought me to Los Angeles. They said, why don't you come there for a few months, see how you like it? And I had already met Dean Martin's son, Dean Paul Martin, who was my first husband. And he was one of my best friends. We became very close, very good friends. We were just friends for 4 years. And he said, come to America, you'll love it. You meet my family and it'll be fun, so I came and tried, and I stayed in the house that Sharon Tate was killed in, as you know. And, but it was exciting time. So I came to America, not thinking I would like it so much, but then I just stayed. I liked the freedom. I don't know, there was something about it. I love the sunshine, and I loved that I felt very protected because Rudy, my manager at the time, who owned the Sharon Tate house, he was very protective of me. And I had Dino, and I spent all my time with Dino and Desi, and at the Martin house, I spent a lot of time there because we were friends. So I went back to London often to visit my mother, my brother, but for some reason I stayed in America.
And in LA, you met Dean Martin's son, and you married him. How can you describe Dean Martin and his family?
Oh, he was lovely. He was so sweet. I mean, we'd all heard of Dean Martin, but he was just very sweet. He was, Dino took me then. I said, oh, you have the loveliest voice. I didn't know, and he was lovely. And his mother, Jeannie, she just said, oh, we're so glad you're here. They just loved me and welcomed me, and Dino and I we just do everything together when we were here, So Dean Senior was wonderful. He was kind. He had a great sense of humor. Thank God, they approved of me and they were happy that we were together, So it was very nice. And I loved that it was a big family. There were 7 kids. And, I had a big family, but it was all because my mother took us away from London to London for, such a traumatic time that I lost all sense of family for a while. So I loved the fact that Dino came from a big family and all the get-togethers were fun. Dean Senior would hold court and he was just wonderful. So it was a nice experience.
Yeah, you were very young when you married. How was that experience?
When Dino and I started, because we were best friends for 4 years, then we got married. And then after Alex was born, we just, things happen when we got married. Dino was 19 and we got married on my 20th birthday. And I had Alex when I was 22. So you can imagine how young we were. you know, and we never lost our friendship or our love, but the marriage sort of crumbled a little bit because I don't think you're ready to marry. Very few cases are really ready to marry at that young age and make it 50, 60 years. You know, it's a long time. And we grew apart and, you know, but we stayed friends.
You were so young, and how did you handle that with a baby?
When Dino and I first split, I was drinking a lot and, you know, I was taking pills to calm myself. And, you know, but I mean, drinking a lot for me is like 5 glasses of wine because I don't drink. The sugar wreaks havoc. It doesn't work for me, you know. But so I was doing all that. And then a friend said, you know, do you want to come and meet this spiritual teacher? And I said, well, what's that? And they said, he's an Indian guru and he's traveling through America. I said, an Indian guru? That's, you know. And they said, well, just come and see, because I was nervous. I was crying a lot. We were going through a separation and it was painful. And so this friend, another actress called Lee Taylor Young, took me to meet Baba, and it changed my life. It really helped me with the meditation. To this day, you can't see here in my house, but the pictures are in the back. My gurus are always there. I mean, it's not that you rely on them, they remind you to focus on your inner self. You know, and that really helped me through the separation. It helped me through the anxiety, you know, the bits of drinking I did, that stopped, you know, for a while. And it changed my life. It was wonderful. Especially, you know, I was suffering from depression. I just had this baby. And they didn't talk about postpartum depression and things like that back then. And after each child, I plummeted into complete depression for at least 7 to 9 months, never knowing why. I didn't know it was my hormones and things, you know. And so thank God I met this teacher who just gave me the strength to be good to myself.
Yeah, and after you've met Swami Muktananda, your guru, more spiritual roles came, like the Virgin Mary.
Franco called me one day and he said, darling, how would you like to be a virgin again? That was his thing. And I said, Franco. And he said, no, the Virgin Maria. How would you like to do that? You know? And I said, for you, anything, I'll do anything, anytime you call, because it was my joy. He was my director. You know, we worked very well together, he and I. And I always would go to Rome and visit him. And when he came to LA, we always saw each other, you know. We had a good bond, Franco and I. And that's how that happened. It happened very quickly, actually. And he said, you've got to fly to London and meet Lord Sir Lou Grade, because he doesn't really understand. I mean, he's trying to cut the budget and saying, instead of 12 disciples, could we use 10? You know, and Franco's saying, no, that's not really what's in the Bible. And it's, you know, so he said, he wanted to meet me to see because I was playing a very important role. And then when I walked in to see Sir Lou Grade, he said, Franco's right. You look so much like that statue in Rome. And I said, do you mean the Pietà? And he said, yes, that statue. You look like her. And I said, well, thank you. That's a privilege and an honor. So that's how I did that. And that was an amazing experience. You know, and then I got to work with Franco again, which is the best, you know.
You work in a script written by the Pope, John Paul II. And after that, Mother Teresa came.
The jeweler's shop, I played Teresa in the jeweler's shop, which Pope John Paul, the Pope, had approved me to play. And that was a great privilege and an honor. And one of the Pope's best friends when he was a young cardinal in Poland was a gentleman called Monsignor Passier, and he was a priest. And we became like best friends because he was representing the Vatican on the set at all times to make sure that the kisses weren't too long, that everything had to be just right, you know. And it was very well received, obviously. It's really jeweler shop. Not a lot of people saw it, but it was Ben Cross, Burt Lancaster, myself, Andrea Pinti, who's an Italian producer now. He's a big producer in Italy. He played my love interest, my husband.
And what can you tell us about that experience of becoming Mother Teresa?
Oh, do you know, after I did Jesus of Nazareth, and it was such a big success, people would say, well, you've played Juliet, you've played the Virgin Mary. What else could you possibly want to play? I mean, jobs come all the time, but very few that are special, you know. And I said, and during the publicity for Jesus of Nazareth, I would say, more than anything, I want to play Mother Teresa of Calcutta. That's my dream, is to play that lady who is so, she inspires me, because just her sheer will and her presence. She formed a new order of nuns. She went out and picked up the first person on the street and just saw Jesus in everybody's face. And to me, I was so inspired by that lady, you know, who was fearless. And it almost came together when I was younger, and then it didn't come together. And, you know, Mother Teresa approved me to play her, and Pope John Paul had approved me. And it fell apart until later in life. And then it came out of nowhere again, you know. So I find it, my dream was to get Franco to direct it, to write it and direct it, The Life of Mother Teresa. That's what I wanted. And Franco say, oh no, it can get so depressing in India and so hot. And no, I can't, you're so beautiful, darling. I don't know if I want to see. And I said, Mother Teresa was beautiful in her way. Beauty, Franco, comes from within, not so much without. And he'd say, oh yes, I know all that, but we're talking about the without now, you know. But it was a great experience. I finally got to do it, not with Franco, but it was a very, very, did you see the film?
Yes.
Yeah, didn't you think it was very sweet? And it was just lovely. And that's one of the roles I enjoyed playing the most in my whole life. I loved it. It was like a dream come true. And from the moment I got to Sri Lanka, I got sick. I was sick immediately. I had ear infections, throat infections, chest infections. I mean, it was just, we were working in the slums and all these different places. And I was on like antibiotics and all kinds of shots to stop nausea because the heat was so intense there, you know, and I didn't get a day off. I got Sundays off, and that was to study dialogue. And that was it. You know, I worked 6 because I was in every scene almost. You know, it was a very tough shoot for me. I started really to get sick then, you know, but I loved every minute of it. I loved it, you know.
And suddenly love came back into your life in Japan with Akira.
I married my second husband, Akira Hussey, who was one of Japan. He was the Frank Sinatra of Japan. He was a fantastic voice. Wonderful human being. We met when I went to do a commercial in Japan for a big cosmetic company. They did a huge campaign, and they brought me to Japan for the first time. And Akira was singing the song on stage to the commercial I had done. And I walked on stage, and I fell in love instantly. It was an instant thing. And I had talked to my guru, Swami Muktananda, you know, a couple of days before I was in Japan, and I'd always call him from anywhere in the world, and I could always talk to him through the translator. And I said, Baba, I'm here, and I was telling him about these issues I was having with this horrible manager at the time. And there I was in Japan, and Baba said, you know, Muktabai is my spiritual name. He said, Muktabai, I performed 23 weddings this weekend. And he said, I see you're next on my list. I said, who, me, Baba? No, I'm never going to marry again. That's it. I was married. No, I'm never going to marry again. I was married once. That was it. And he said, I bless you. I bless you. And I walked out that afternoon after getting off the phone with my guru, who said, I bless you. And I see you're next on my list for a wedding. That's how he would speak to me. I walked out on stage and looked at Akira, and Akira looked at me, and it was love at first sight. And I talked to Baba 3 or 4 days later. I said, Baba, I've met this wonderful man. And he said, Japanese men make very good husbands, you know, and that was it. he knew already, you know, he was amazing. When I got the role of the Virgin Mary, I went and visited my guru and said, I'm going to play the mother of Jesus. And he said, oh, what an honor. How many actresses get to play the mother of Christ? What an honor. What a privilege. And you're so perfect for it. And he was so excited that it was just very nice.
And Olivia, how can you describe your relationship with your guru, with Swami Muktananda, Baba, as you call him? Is it because it's such an intense relationship, right?
You know, there are a lot of spiritual people of light, people that pray and that meditate, that are from all religions. You respect them all. It's not about the religion. It's about getting to the one that dwells within you. That's what I believe. I believe God dwells within you as you, that you are a part of God. I've always thought that. I don't think God is this man that sits in the sky and listens to your problems, or a woman. No, I believe that God is this inner light that we all have, that is inside our hearts. That's what I've always believed. And so you can meet many beings of light, I call them, many spiritual teachers, masters from all kinds of religions, and not feel an affinity. I met my guru, and when he first touched my forehead, I was going through this first separation and I was heartbroken, and I went there just out of curiosity. But as he walked out, he touched my face, and and I felt this electrical charge in my body, some kind of heat coming up from my back, my spine. And I was when he looked at me, I cried and I laughed at the same time. And I felt afterwards, I read about it, and it was an awakening of sorts. An awakening to my own divinity, my own inner light, you know. And in that moment, when I looked at his eyes, I said, this is really, the acting is wonderful, it's a gift, but this is why I've been born, to meet my teacher and to learn more about myself. Because a good teacher doesn't say, follow me blindly and do what I say. A good teacher says, you too can feel like this. You know, we're all gods in our own way, you know, and there is a higher power, but it's not what people think really a lot of time. I believe it's that when I sit for meditation, and meditation takes a lot of discipline, but it's also the breathing, and so many experiences can come, and you get that inner light here in your forehead, and it's unmistakable. I mean, when I really need to talk to my teacher, I go within and I just say, God, teachers, beings of light, I bow to you all. I'm having a very hard time. Help me through this, because I'm so highly strung and reactive in my life. And you know, and sometimes it's just darkness, and it just, okay, I surrender it and I do my breathing. But sometimes that light comes. There's a light, a real light that comes inside your head, in your forehead, that fills you with, it stops everything. You're there and you're aware of yourself, but you become like, I don't know, you feel like you're a universe inside yourself. It's complete calm. It's bliss. It's the only way I can describe it. And I've had that since the day I met him, when I was 22 years old and going through my separation with Dino. I took Dino to meet him. You know, I took Dino to meet Baba, and Dino wasn't that way at all, but he just said, he got very red and he said, what a lovely human being he is. And I feel a bit different, because you do feel, when you come into the presence of people like Amma, the hugging saint that goes around, I don't know if you've heard of her, she whispers blessings into everyone's ears. And the energy, these people, you know, they're different. They're people, and they're carrying this awareness, this awakened energy within them. And even if you don't completely always understand it, your heart, the inner energy that's inside you, responds to that. And I'm sure that Jesus's disciples felt the same way about Jesus when they met him. He was their guru, their teacher. and these beings of light have been always around. They're there. There's so many of them in the world right now, and they're usually very well hidden, and they're there to help mankind not mess up too much.
Do you have any thoughts about what's happening after we die?
Afterlife, it can't be worse than what's been here. I mean, it can't. It depends how you lead your life. I honestly believe, I've made lots of mistakes. I've broken a few hearts here and there as you go, because life does that. But I've never intentionally gone out to hurt another human being or to cause damage. So I know that when my time comes, it can only be good. Every action has a reaction, and you really have to be careful how you think, how you feel, how you treat other people, because it's not how much success you have in this lifetime that's really important. Success is nice, but people are people, and if you can treat a huge movie star or producer very well, and you treat a waiter or a doorman or a homeless person badly, it doesn't work. It's not right. You have to treat everybody equally, and you have to respect people. And once I did that, a lot of my panic attacks, my agoraphobia that I've suffered with my whole life, a lot of things just get into perspective. I can get very reactive and emotional because I'm that kind of person. But when I sit down and I talk to my God, my inner God, and I feel calm, I feel good, and it gives me the strength to cope with my life. It's a good thing, and it doesn't matter if it's physical yoga. A teacher is a blessing, but not everyone can meet a teacher. But it's, since I was 22, since the day I met my teacher, I've never wavered. He passed away a long, long time ago, but he's always, always in my heart. And I thank God for that. Jesus is one of my gurus, Paramahansa Yogananda, who wrote Autobiography of a Yogi, is one of my teachers. And my goodness, there's so many. Mother Teresa, Saint Therese of Lisieux, she was wonderful. And of course, the Virgin Mary herself, That's what's really important, is who you are as a person, I think. It's not the accolades, not the acting, not the this. It's more, lead your life decently, have kindness. Don't try not to be mean to people for no reason, just because you're feeling bad. Usually when you're mean to somebody, it's because you're feeling bad about you. Just try to just be kind, have compassion. Be loving, love what you do, and try to realize that people have their own issues. They're coming from the only place that they know, that they understand. So try not to be too judgmental, which has always been hard for me, because especially when it comes to acting, it's like, I love great performances, and, I don't know.
Yes. And
my guru really helped my life, blessed my life.
And then another musician came into your life, but this time it was a rock star. And
well, I've always loved musicians. I always loved musicians. So that was always my weakness. Yes. And then I met David Glenn Isley, who's a singer, fantastic singer, and a rock and roll musician. And he had seen Romeo and Juliet when he was young, and he had told his mother that I was the most beautiful woman in the world, and he loved me. And I went to have breakfast with my son, and in this deli here in Los Angeles. And I look over and I see this blonde man holding his heart and just standing there, just staring at me. And I smiled at him. And then he went away and he wrote this song, Olivia. And that was we're together, and now it's 31 years that we're together.
And you have a daughter as well, which became an actress.
She's an actress herself in her own right. She's sitting right here with me. We're best friends.
And yeah, Olivia, there's your daughter India, which she's very young, and she's an actress, and she's getting into this world, which is non-spiritual at all. It's the world of the show business, of the star system, the world of the image, of the social networks, of kids pretending this, pretending that, all these happy faces and fantastic lives. And which is your advice to this young generation?
It's nice to do it, but don't get carried away with it. It's not really real. It's the people you come into contact with and the people that are in your life. Those are the people that really matter. It's not about just being on Instagram and putting happy pictures up all the time, because life isn't happy all the time. The whole point of life is to just keep going, and just don't take it all so seriously. It's take it with a grain of salt, really, because they're just experiences to help your spirit grow, your soul. That's what's important. Young people today, I think it's very hard today. I'm lucky because my 3 children are all they're not like me. They don't go out looking for teachers, but they're very self-contained. They're very strong. I'm very proud because I spent a lot of time with my children. I would have had more of a career, I think, if I devoted more time to my work. But usually it would be, do I do that film or do I stay home because the boys have exams now? And I would always pick the children, before the work.
And
which I don't regret. I know it's fine, but yeah, they're not. My children, I don't have to really. They don't smoke. They don't. I never had to ground to my children. I never had to say you're grounded. You can't go out. Because they. I think they got a lot of attention when they were young, and they're very They know about. They're good people. They're good. They're kind. They're nice. They never bullied anyone, And I used to say to them when they were little, you can do anything you want and I'll always support you. I'll always be behind you. You can come to me with any problem because I'm not perfect and I'm not here to judge you, but I'll help you through anything. I never want to hear that you've been a bully or that you've been mean to somebody that isn't as lucky as you are, and so they do that to this day. I think they're good people. They're nice people. If I didn't know they were my children and I met them, I'd love them. So that's what's important,
And Olivia, I'm a dad, and sometimes I find it hard to, put limits to my kid. And how did you balance your spiritual life and teach them how to be compassionate and lovely human beings with, putting them limits and rules at home?
Well, my rules were be kind. I never really said, when we live in LA and, LA is it's Hollywood, and when my oldest son, Alex, started going out at 16, 17, he was driving his car, he was very LA, but he'd call me at 2:00 in the morning and he'd say, Mom, I'm at this party. And he'd say, all the drugs are coming out now. Can I take a cab and come home? Can I take a taxi? I say, absolutely, don't worry about it. Because he'd call me, he'd sneak off and call me. And as soon as the drugs were around, he just had no interest at all. He just didn't want to know. I think because I gave a lot of attention to the kids. So I didn't put rules. You're more of a friend to your kids. So that your kids, most of Alex's friends would say, God, I wish your mom was my mom. She's so cool. She just understands. It's just, I think, and they saw me and I'm I have my faults, but I like to think I'm quite a compassionate person. I'm kind, I'm kind to people. I'm not a saint, but I'm a good person. And so why would my children not be good?
Well,
listen to your children. My advice is listen to your children. If they have a problem, you take it seriously because they're your children, but they don't belong to you. They're people as well. So they can come to you. If you're a good parent, I think they can come to you with anything. And you understand, you have to understand,
Yes. Well, yeah. Coming this from the actress that perform Juliet, which is like two households divided
Yeah,
by
exactly.
violence. It's like
Yes.
quite a learning, right?
Yes, but the love won out in the end because it brought the families together, didn't it? They had to die for it, but love won in the end. It's all about love. Everything in this world boils down to, are you loved? Do you feel love? Do you love all living beings? It's all about love and compassion. If you don't have love in your life and you have billions of dollars, you don't have anything. You know, you can buy what you want, but it's about caring and caring for other people and not using people and just, you know, just being the best person you can be in this lifetime. And you can't go wrong if you do that. You know, if you suffer from depression, get help. You know, talk to people. There are people you can talk to, but always try to, you know, get into a yoga class, try a little meditation, go to church and pray. I love going to churches and meditating because they're very peaceful. And I respect the popes. I respect, you know, I love Jesus as one of my teachers. You know, it's just, I was lucky. I met my teacher when I was 22 and it changed my life.
Olivia, as you know, every year we celebrate Shakespeare in Buenos Aires. And also we give the Premio Shakespeare. And this year, the Premio Shakespeare is for you. So
great honor, and yeah. I'm in very good company, from Judi Dench to Kenneth Branagh. It doesn't get better than that. So it's a real compliment. And coming from the country I was born in, it means a lot. I wish my dad and my mom were still alive. They'd be very proud.
Yes, of course, yes.
But what? Thank you so much for this award. I don't have it, but thank you. I'm hoping at some point you will send it to me.
I will.
I will. It was an honor.
No, if you let me, I'll take it personally. Don't worry. I'll carry it with me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Olivia.
This is the first Zoom meeting I've ever done.
Well, that's
I did it for you.
Thank you so much, Olivia. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. A really honor. And I hope that in the near future we can meet in Buenos Aires.
It would be a dream because Leonard loves traveling. And to have Leonard and I on stage together, we did something here in 2016 and it sold out overnight. We just publicized it 48 hours before, and by 2 days later, they were sold out, standing room only. And we stayed there. We were supposed to do an hour, 2 hours at the theater here in Los Angeles. And fans flew in from other states and things. One came from Belgium. I mean, just incredible. And we stayed until midnight, until 12 o'clock, because they crowded to the stage. Everyone said, I bought your book and I want you to, you know, and I just said, wait a minute, no panic. Leonard and I are happy to stay here until every one of you has had a photo with us and gets an autograph. So we stayed until midnight. You know, we had so much fun. It was lovely. So I'd like to come to Argentina again. And then you could meet some of my family there.
Yes. Well, say thank you to India. I know, I don't know if she's listening to me, if she's there.
Just peek your head in and just say hello. Say, hello, Patricio. Hello. She's a great actress, and not because she's my daughter. Wait till you see what she's going to come up with in the future.
Yes,
well. I'm so proud of her. I'm a proud mama. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Olivia. It's been a pleasure. We'll be in touch.
God bless. I hope we meet in person.
Yes.
And I'll let you know when I get my award. Okay.
Thank you so much. See you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Bye.
Ciao.